It's the Friendly Fire Show, episode 261, for the post-Xbox business update era. I'm one of your co-hosts, Steve Wright. Joining me, co-host Ben Salter. Hi, Ben. It's been an eventful week. What have you been up to?
It has. Well, listening to Xbox, really. Like, that's the main thing. I did a new episode of the Grand Tour. One of the last ones came out on Friday. And I only mention that because on Sunday, we had a very Top Gear-esque moment of a car just failing, like just slowly dying. And like, this is very Richard Hammond-esque, just trying to go up. So Adelaide is the state that has the freeway. There's like the one that people mean, which goes to my mum's house. And it's up. It goes to what is actually called the Adelaide Hills. So you need to go up a hill to get there. And going up this hill, accelerator on the floor, and we're going from like 95 to 80 to 75 to 60. And it's like there's no more power to give. And like, oh, this isn't good. And Claire went with the old like, oh, maybe it'll cool down. It'll be okay. I'm just like, it's just the smell was imminent failure. Anyway, then we rolled back down to get home the same hill because it's downhill. You can kind of just roll. But then trying to get power on flat was just like, no, it's not going to happen. And yeah, it's dead. So it's basically a mini Top Gear style failure without the big crew and the 5-star hotel afterwards.
Oh, there you go. It's 34 degrees the day we're recording this, and it's 36 tomorrow. And I found out today that I think my air conditioning's just died in my car. Ooh. So good time for it. Everything's coming up Millhouse, I guess.
Yeah, well, a good time to stay home and play games on your Xbox, which, big picture, would you say you're more confident now than you were last week, having heard from Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty?
I'm gonna no. I think I don't know. Like, we'll get into the specifics in a second, but we talked last week about what we thought would happen, and this is obviously we know what's happened. Overall thoughts. So I think someone said like this podcast could have been an email, and that is absolutely correct. It could have been an email. It could have been a tweet. It could have been a tweet that was sent the same time that Phil said come back in a week. A lot of talking and not a lot of substance, I guess. What did you think generally of what happened?
I think exactly that. I think for the amount that they said, Bill could have said that in his tweet, basically, when he went out a week earlier. I don't think we needed the big lag to say that. I think I'm more confident now than I was in that they've at least for now, confirmed they're sticking with hardware. The thing that we're mainly concerned about is we've invested quite a lot in having an Xbox ecosystem of digital games. And I like the thing with Xbox is your games move with you between generations. Like Sony was big on, we believe in generations, we're not going to do that. And they've kind of been forced to follow because Xbox just did it so well. And so I was kind of thinking, do I want to buy games on an Xbox if they're not going to come with me? Because there is no Xbox next generation. So the fact that they haven't really said definitely there's going to be, well, they did. Sarah Bond said, our next console is going to be the most powerful one ever. It's going to be the biggest leap ever, which can't be true, but that's what she said.
Yeah.
Can't be true. There's no way. You're telling me it's a bigger leap than like the SNES to the N64. Like, there's just no way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at least from that point of view, more confidence. But in terms of the logistics about what's actually changing, what this really means, they were a very grey area. Phil was Phil. Like, he's pretty media trained and he knows how to say these things.
Yeah.
I didn't like the host who also works for Xbox being like asking something and then him jumping in with great question. Like, it's not a question. It's on the prompter. Like, he even made a prompter joke about when he announced back compat and people read it beforehand and he's not great at covering that up. Like, and then you just made it worse with that. And then I thought Sarah and Matt were pretty poor in their delivery. Like, they were really polished and professional, but that wasn't what we needed here. If you're going to do a podcast, it needs to be a chat. And it was them just reading off the teleprompter, like, very clearly.
Yeah.
And that's not the right format for that. So I don't think they did a good job.
Yeah, I agree. It was weird. Like, Tina Amini is ex-IGN. You know, they had her kind of looking like she was some sort of independent journalist asking questions. Like, no, like, the questions, the banter, like, they practiced that probably 50 times over before they recorded it, air quotes, for a podcast, which is weird because, you know, like, we are not reading off a teleprompter. by any stretch right now. It's kind of
Oh,
off
you
the
can
cuff
tell.
and is well, yeah,
Mm.
I know that's very obvious, but like so that's the thing. Like it's this really polished thing, like trying to be like, hey, cool kids, like we're just riffing. It's not like we needed a week to polish the script and get the lighting and run through this so we could be like, oh, this is totally not rehearsed. It was all rehearsed and it was all very scripted. Um, and for not a lot, so let's actually get into the specifics. The first thing that we know for sure now is that four titles that used to be Xbox asterisk exclusive, which also means PC, are now going to be multi-platform, presumably on the PS5, on the Switch, or maybe the Switch 2, depending on what's going on there. But we'll get into that another week. As soon as Phil said there was four titles, he said, "I'm not going to tell you what they are because that wouldn't be nice to the people planning announcements." Well, look, then you're
Really weird.
yeah. What you're this is the announcement. It's literally an announcement that this is happening. The good thing is like we know what those four titles are, despite Microsoft not confirming them. Two of them are community based, and two of them have kind of like they released a year ago, and they've kind of done what they can on an Xbox platform. So the four presumed titles: Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded, and Sea of Thieves. Starfield and Indiana Jones were name dropped as exclusives that aren't going to be multi-platform, at least for now. But the way that Phil talked about it, he's not reserving the right to ship them multi-platform a year after they come out, kind of thing. So that's the main nugget of non-news news. Let's get more into it. I don't know what there is to say beyond that, but have a
It's
crack.
basically it. I think it's really weird that they didn't say the four games because they were announced. Well, they were part of the leak and the rumors, and so we know what they are. Like they may, if they're going to come out and they're going to delay it a week so that they can get their ducks in a row, that would include being able to announce those four games. So, and then of course, just led to more speculation saying Xbox is or was planning to move Starfield over, but they've backtracked for now. Obviously, Phil didn't comment on that really because that wasn't brought up there, but it's like now that's still out there, and we just assume that's true because they didn't actually really address exactly what it was.
Hmm.
The four games in question make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Sea of Thieves, especially, like absolutely, that game's been out for what 5-6 years now. It's probably, or it has, it's reached its capacity on Xbox. It's moved generations and is still alive, which is kind of amazing. That doesn't happen very often. But you would expect it to now slowly die, if not suddenly die.
Yeah.
So it'll get it's good for that community. It makes sense. The other games are kind of smaller things. They've been out for a while. That's what he said. The thing that was missing was if they had said our first party games moving to other platforms, i.e., moving to PlayStation, that is the other platform. I don't think they ever mentioned the word PlayStation.
No.
Um, it'll always be after 12 months or something. Like they didn't put that parameter around it. And he said it for these four, like they're at least 12 months old, didn't say that's what will be the case moving forward. Now, probably because they haven't made decisions about that. But I think that's what people kind of wanted. They kind of wanted what's the box we're playing in here? Is it you're going to have day one on PlayStation eventually, or is it always going to be that 12-month lag? In which case, there's more value in getting an Xbox if you want to play these games when they're newer. So they were still a bit cagey for mine on that type of stuff.
Yeah, and it didn't do a lot to dissuade my kind of overarching fear. And we'll get into the platform side of things later on. But like the big worry that a lot of people had was, okay, well, if I want God of War and Spider Man, I have to buy a PlayStation. And if I, presumably a year ago, if I want Halo and Forza and Starfield, I have to buy an Xbox. Well, that's changed. So if you have enough money to buy one console, you get a PlayStation, and you can play all the PlayStation games straight away. And if you're patient, you get Xbox games. And it might not be all of them right now, but there's nothing saying that that's going to change. So if you have to hedge your bets, you buy a PlayStation. And, like, I know that we have all the consoles, and we're probably speaking to a lot of people who are listening who have all the consoles, but we're a very privileged set that get to do that. And I still don't quite understand how this is going to encourage someone to buy an Xbox, which feeds into hardware stuff that we'll get into later. And, like, oh, Starfield's still Xbox, don't worry. Well, until Microsoft decides that Starfield hasn't made enough money and you can release it potentially to 140 million more people, so then Starfield's multi-platform. So like it was, yeah, but no, but kind of, but we're not saying it's not a policy. Like there was just no information to really set my mind at ease, I guess is where I'm trying to get at with that.
Yeah, I think it's I agree with Phil when he said the console market is becoming less about exclusives. And I think that is true. I think there are definitely less in the market this generation. So where there was another report that, Sony kind of fumbled their words a little bit and said that we're moving into the latter half of the PS5's life cycle. And we are, it's true. If we're assuming 7-year generations, which the last few have been roughly, we're 3.5 years in, like we're at the halfway mark. So we are moving to the second half. And you'd probably say that it kind of also still feels like this generation's only just starting in a way that we're only just getting games which are not cross-gen or only recently started to get that as the norm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, there has been less exclusives because of that. They've either been across generation, so you didn't actually need the new hardware to play the exclusive game, or there's just been less of them. And maybe some of that's COVID related, but certainly Xbox had a very dry year last year, and they seem to have a few more games this year. PlayStation have a pretty dry year this year. We never really know what Nintendo's doing. They probably have the most of anyone, and they're probably a little bit different. They're entirely based. Their whole business model is pretty much based on we've got the killer games and they're only on our platform, and it doesn't matter that they're miles behind in terms of tech. They're kind of still rocking that model, but everyone else does seem to be going a bit less exclusive. But as you say, if you can still get the big games, you can get your GTA and your FIFA and your Minecraft and your Fortnite and Fall Guys or whatever the real big multi-platform games are. But then you can also get Spider-Man on PlayStation. You should get that.
Yeah.
So it's what's the compelling feature of Xbox that makes it still worthwhile, and that's what they haven't really answered. So if it's less about exclusive, what is it more about? And they kind of said Game Pass, because Game Pass won't go to PlayStation and Nintendo platforms. They said it's only going to be on Xbox consoles. But that's probably more to do with the fact that the other publisher or the other system holders won't allow it than Xbox not wanting to do it. Yeah. So what else are they actually giving us? And I kind of think that's what they missed. Like they announced Diablo 4 is coming to Game Pass in like a month. Like, why didn't they drop something today on that day to soften the blow? A bit weird. Like when they bought Bethesda, a bunch of games dropped all at once. Hasn't happened for Activision. Or they could have announced something else to kind of say, like we've talked about in Link, that they kind of fluffed. Xbox Live Gold becoming Game Pass Core. This seemed to be a great opportunity to say, hey, we're going to make gaming free on Xbox, because if we're going to say play on the platform you want to play on, it doesn't really make sense, and that's not really consistent with, except one of them you have to pay to play online and the others you don't. The others being PC. So yeah, it's just they didn't really do enough to say here are some positives for me.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, so like Game Pass, it's the same. I keep going back to that kind of same idea. Like Game Pass right now is a good value. It's on a console that I have. I don't know if I'd buy well, I do. I have told people in the past, buy a Series S if you want something that can kind of play all these games. Get a subscription to Game Pass, and you're kind of sorted. It's a pretty good deal. But same idea. Like if no one's buying an Xbox because they're buying a PlayStation, then they're not subscribing to Game Pass on PlayStation, and there's no reason to get an Xbox, so there's no reason to get Game Pass. So why would, like, the money that, not that I'm great at business, but the business doesn't make sense if no one's really kind of in the Xbox ecosystem, because they're all kind of shifting away somewhere else to play on whatever screen they want. Like the value proposition of Game Pass to a third-party publisher isn't there, or Microsoft's going to have to shell out more money to get these things on Game Pass. It's going to become less value. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Like it doesn't, nothing's adding up in my head. And this kind of like not touchy feely, but like warm fuzzies, exclusives aren't a thing. Play on whatever you want. Well, like people they'll play on a PlayStation, and then I don't see the need for an Xbox. And things like the controller that I like and achievements that I like and all the overlays and smart delivery and blah, 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 blah. They're all really good consumer friendly things, but they're kind of like not applicable if Xbox isn't relevant. And they're kind of becoming less relevant in my mind with all these decisions than front and center.
Yeah, I think the big one there is as much as they need to grow beyond consoles to grow Game Pass, and that's clearly their main objective. They set themselves a 100 million goal by 2027, which is not going to happen. They know that now. Like surely they've called it. They should readjust that to probably 40, if anything. But most of the paying users on Game Pass, and that's their metric now, is paying. So it's not people on the free trials or the $1 deal. It's like actual paying customers is what they're saying, probably because that's what investors want to know. They're mostly on Xbox. So you need to sell Xboxes to at least maintain your current Game Pass subscribers. And that's kind of my worry. If they're not doing that, like it's the best place to play. Like as much as you can stream games and you can play on PC, Xbox is the obvious platform for Game Pass. So then people don't have the console to begin with. I can't see it growing. We've got an update in numbers for the first time in 2 years as well. So they announced 34 million paying subscribers on Game Pass. I thought initially that didn't include people who used to be on Xbox Live Gold, but it does. So that includes core members as well. The number we got in January of 2022 was 25 million just Game Pass subscribers plus 12 million Xbox Live Gold. So a little bit of quick math tells you their total numbers have actually dropped. They haven't, I certainly can't see how they've really grown. Now, I suspect there would have been some people who just don't read and don't check things who subscribe to Game Pass for console and Xbox Live Gold. There would have been double ups. People just didn't realize you can get Ultimate to do both. That probably accounts for some of the drop, but it's certainly not growth, which is a big worry. As much as they tried to sell it as, yeah, we've got 34 million subscribers, I would have thought with Xbox Live Gold members in there as well, it would be 50 million plus by now.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of stuff kind of tied to Game Pass, which is useful to consumers. And Phil's come out and said Xbox game streaming, which you only get with Game Pass Ultimate, will let you stream anything that you own in your library, which ties into all the stuff that we've been talking about with the ecosystem, which is cool. But also that was promised back in 2022 and hasn't come to fruition yet. So, Phil saying, oh yeah, no, it should be this year, doesn't mean a terrible like a lot to me at this point. Like, I'm happy it'll come when it comes. So there is some value in it, but it's hard to kind of try to see the value to someone like, I don't know, like right now, what are the killer apps on Xbox? I don't think I'd recommend someone get Game Pass to play Starfield, maybe Diablo, maybe a Call of Duty, but it's a horrible time for cost of living right now, and people are culling subscriptions left and right. So, your people, and Sony made a huge deal of it back in the PS4, Xbox One era with, like, this is game sharing, and it was someone handing a disc to someone. You get a whole bunch of friends, you're all on a PlayStation 5, someone buys Spider-Man, and you hand it around once in a while, and that's Game Pass now. It's PlayStation Game Pass. So it's a tough landscape for Sony and Microsoft right now, but I'm not trying to be super negative, but it's just like I left with more questions and less certainty than I was hoping. And you were alluding to it in the past. Sarah was talking about, Sarah Bond, that is, was talking about this next gen console and planning, a huge leap forward. That's not true, and maybe it is if they're talking like teraflop numbers and stuff. But we're in that period with technology where, like, maybe we're getting closer or a little bit out of uncanny valley, but like huge, amazing leaps in technology, SSDs and fast loading times, like that's great, but that's not a huge leap compared to, like you were saying, SNES to 64. And there's millions of other examples. And the fact of the matter is, right now we're in almost like PS4, Xbox One, Xbox One, too many numbers, like version 1.5, not a leap anyway. Yes, we've made advantage of SSDs and quick resume and things like that, but most of the games are on last gen and current gen. There's not this huge defining leap, and I can't imagine how that's going to, eventuate itself with the next generation of consoles. It's just going to kind of be refinements, and AI, I'm sure, is going to feature quite a bit somehow and all this kind of stuff. But it was weird that promise was made, that quote was put out there, because it's only going to backfire, I would imagine. I hope not, but...
Yeah, weird how they did it. Like, it was a clear reading off the prompter. She just said it in her very markety voice, and they just moved on immediately. Like, if that had been an actual conversation, surely there would have been a response to that. Like, that's an insane statement, and if true, amazing. And it also means Xbox is going closer to their roots than they are now, which is, they launched as we have the most powerful console. Didn't work with them initially. They followed that again for the launch of the 360, and it did work. Then in the back half of the 360 generation, they chased the Wii casual gamer, and they went full Connect and less about that, which then informed how they launched the Xbox One, which was the first time they had the weaker console on the market and didn't really work. Then they kind of fixed that when Phil came in with the One X. And then this generation, they tried to kind of split the difference. They were like, we've got the powerful, actually quite well-made console, and then we've got the cheaper, dodgy one, but games have to work on both of them. And that's kind of just made it the worst option to develop games for, as we saw with Baldur's Gate. So maybe it means they're going back to more that early 360 gen mindset of that's the hook of Xbox, is it's the best place to play third party games, which there is something there. Like people like us would buy third party games on the most powerful console. The problem is, when do they launch that? Because if they're not going to do a pro console because they're doing this, Sony launched the PS5 Pro this year as rumored, or next year. That's then the most powerful console. All of a sudden, people in our kind of demographic, we decide to buy GTA 6 on PS5 Pro because you're getting a much better experience and you're on Xbox Series X. Then I'm already in the PlayStation ecosystem, too late. So it's kind of, if they're not going to go a pro this generation, but Sony does, they're going to lose some people like us. And then they just need to decide by the time if they launch with Sony next generation, it's almost too late, even if they have the more powerful machine. Or do they cut their losses and they say, you know what, our next gen starts 2025. It worked with the 360.
Yeah, well, and they also said we're getting a hardware announcement probably mid-year, timed for a holiday release. So that could be, it could be like three things, I guess. One, it could be a pro revision of the current gen, and we've seen from FTC filings, maybe it's a diskless Series X that looks more like a cylinder than a
looks terrible.
Yeah, that includes, I guess, that kind of new kind of dual sensey controller hybrid type thing. It could be, as rumored, handheld hardware that rivals the ROG Ally or the Steam Deck, maybe, or it could be next gen console announcement. Like I don't know if that would fly, that third option, because I think it's too soon. I've had not a huge benefit from upgrading to a Series X, so why would I do it again? Especially kind of feeling the way I do with all the stuff that I've said before.
Yeah.
But kind of more importantly to me, that messaging contradicted everything that they said just before. So when you're talking about like games, are platformless, and the experience is what it's all about, and they're talking about things like Minecraft and Roblox and like Fortnite. I know Fortnite's using Unreal Engine 5 and it's actually like a technological marvel. Like it doesn't look like photorealistic, oh my goodness, GTA 6 kind of stuff that you were talking about. So you can't go from like you need all this hardware and all this power to make the best experiences, and also just cite Roblox, because you can play it on a phone. You can play, and it's not like streaming to the phone. You can just play it on the phone. So like, which is it? Is it A or is it B, or is it some sort of hybrid? Is that the huge leap that they're talking about? And to be honest, that's experiences that I don't need. I don't foresee myself playing a Minecraft or a Roblox or something like that where I can bounce between my phone or my TV or my smart fridge to my Xbox. Like I'm the old man yelling at a cloud more often than not. I don't know. I'm kind of terrified that I'm aging myself out here, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and the only way I can see it is if they're going to announce quicker next gen than we think. It's because they're doubling down on smart delivery and the fact that it's just really called Xbox now. And it's more like a model, like it's a phone upgrade, and you don't really need to upgrade. But so if Sony badge theirs as the PS5 Pro, it's still in the PS5 generation. It's just more powerful. But Xbox badge theirs it's just the next iteration of Xbox, and you can buy a game and it will run on this better, or it will still run in your Series X. And smart delivery will give you the right copy. Maybe the benefit is it allows developers, if they choose, to say, well, our one is only going to work on the newer console, so they can cut Series S, which is clearly a bottleneck. And so if they call it an Xbox Series X Pro or Series X or whatever it would be, they can't do that. It's still part of the same generation. Series S, which is the problem, has to stay there. It sounds like they've stopped production of Xbox entirely because it's just not selling. So I think they might have got a bit of a wrong idea from Series S being successful. Apparently it's about 2/3 of the console sold, but for like a year, maybe even 2 years, that was the only current gen console available. You couldn't get a Series X and you couldn't get a PS5, but you could get a Series S. And I kind of feel like that might have inflated how many actually sold because it was there on store shelves, rather than it being the machine people want. So,
yeah. But in some cases, it's the machine that people kind of need. Because, like, I think when this gen came out, there was this huge promise of, like, 60 frames being, the standard. And, a lot of games we've seen so far, 60 if you turn it to a specific mode, but 30 generally. And there's that thing of like, if these next gen consoles, like I'm talking next gen, PS6, whatever you want to call the Xbox, like if they're aiming to hit like 8K resolution or something ridiculous, so many people still have a 1080p TV, so it's wasteful. Like we have 4K displays, I know that, but then we're kind of not the traditional everyman, that's debating whether or not you buy an Xbox or a PlayStation. We have both. We have 4K TVs. I'm assuming when an 8K TV comes out that I can afford, I'll probably do that too, because why not? I like that kind of stuff. Like it's not needed, and that it's that thing again.
No.
Like, and you don't need to play Minecraft in 8K either, or on your phone, which is definitely not going to be in 8K. It's a weird time, and I'm not saying I have the answers, but I'm not thinking that Microsoft necessarily does either, nor Sony, nor Nintendo doesn't care. Nintendo's doing its own thing, so good on
Yeah,
Nintendo.
they're wildly successful. They've basically proven that all these things and trying to one up each other doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Just have Mario. That's the secret. Yeah, it's a strange time. I'm feeling better about investing in. I'm not stopping buying on Xbox, which I was actually genuinely considering previously, just because I wasn't certain they were going to have a next gen console, and I don't want to basically be investing in a dead ecosystem, because the first 2 years of this generation was me catching up, and still actually now catching up on my backlog and getting a better experience because I'm playing an Xbox One game on Xbox Series X. So if that's not going to be a thing next gen, I'm out. Because it will be on PlayStation. They have to now. But I at least think they'll be here one more gen. Whether or not that's true, we'll have to wait and see. But Sarah Bond has promised us.
well, yes. I don't know if there's much else to say. Like I don't want to feel like I'm like beating Microsoft down. We have an answer for now. I hope that the messaging continues to improve. I hope that we get like we're recording this on Wednesday. It's going to go out on Wednesday overnight at 1 a.m. There's a Nintendo third-party direct, so I'm imagining Hi-Fi Rush gets detailed. So we'll probably know formally about one of the four games. I would like to see the other four announced quick smart. I would like for Microsoft to give us an update on what their intentions are, and I can't wait for the mid-year hardware announcements of whatever they're going on about. And I'd like to see more information about what's happening with Game Pass. So, all
Yep.
of if Acti Blizzard titles, like that's everything. That's Crash 4. That's the next Call of Duty that's coming out. That's all the Call of Duties theoretically beforehand. Like, if that gets added into Game Pass sooner than later, okay, there's value in Game Pass again, especially if you're a very specific type of person. So it's not all bad news. It's just kind of like it's scant at the moment, and I just want more information, I guess, is where I am.
Yep. It's weird they haven't added anything to Game Pass from Activision Blizzard yet. They did say that and they just skimmed over it, but they kind of said all first-party games will launch day one on Game Pass, which now that technically includes the next Call of Duty. So, but they didn't say that. Of course, that game hasn't been announced yet, but we
Yep.
know it's coming. It's another Black Ops Cold War game, or not Cold War, the sequel to it, Gulf War. Um, and it's strange that they just haven't put anything out there. Like
Yeah.
the fact that they haven't put some older CODs there, I know they still sell, and that doesn't seem good enough reason to not have any there. Or something like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, whatever that one was called, 1+2.
Yep.
Like they've got enough like little games like that could just kind of plug a gap and put something old but new on Game Pass. So I'm glad they're starting with Diablo, like a relatively new game, newish, year old. But it's a little bit weird. And I just hope they don't try to pull a shifty and be like first party games from Xbox Studios, and we're not counting Activision as first party. Like they've
Well,
left themselves wiggle room.
Spencer was talking to Steven Totillo today, and he said like it's our intention to put all Xbox Game Studios, ZeniMax, Acti titles on Game Pass day one.
Okay,
Intention though, that's the key word in that phrase.
that's clearer.
But he also said, like we're working to get it happening on day one. So there's still something preventing them from Activision, right. And it might be, the acquisition's not quite set, the ink's not dry, and they have to be careful about multi-platform or I have no idea, but yeah, just more. It's that kind of yeah, but no, but just like give us a definitive answer would be awesome. Anyway,
Who knows? Yeah,
let the
that's.
dust settle. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, in the weeks to come.
Hmm.
Anything you want to add before we get out of here?
I don't think so. I think I'm still going to be playing on my Xbox for now. If Sony release a banging PS5 Pro, I'll probably move over there. So your move Xbox for my third-party gaming this generation.
I'm just trying to hit a million gamer score, and then
Whoa,
once I
crazy.
hit, I've only got like 200,000 to go. Once I hit that, achievements can die. I'll be
That's what
sad,
you said
but
about 500,000. So
yeah, you
you
got
can
me
start
there.
your trophy collection.
All right, see you next week.
See ya.